I'm really excited to be here with all of you tonight and to spend this time with you. And I never thought that I would be leading a gathering on mysticism, but I also never thought that I would call myself a mystic. But here we are. And while I will be sharing some information tonight and some knowledge, I want to be clear from the start that I am by no means an expert on mysticism. The only thing I am an expert on is really my own experience. So that's what I'm here to talk about generally. Um, so as I began to come out of the mystic closet, and I do think of it that way, um, it, I was surprised by how many people came up to me and asked about my experience and also shared their experience, their mystical experiences that they were not able to share in places. And tonight is a time for us to do just that, to share with each other in this sacred one spirit community that really connects us all. And to give you an idea, a little idea of how the evening's going to go and how our time together will be spent. First, we're going to talk about what mysticism is, but also what it isn't. So as a way to begin to demystify this word that sometimes is very confusing to people. After that, we will talk about who are the mystics, who is a mystic, and we'll meet a few mystics. And then we will finally share what it is like to walk the mystic path. So after all that, toward the end of the night, we'll do a breakout room where we'll have an opportunity to do some more intimate sharing and then come back into the room for a larger share. So to get started, some of you might be asking yourself, how do I know if I'm a mystic? And there are a few telltale signs. So you may relate to one of them or all of them. It doesn't matter. This is not a contest, and there are no awards given out for who is the most mystic. So this is just as I go through the list. I invite you all, if there's any that really resonate with you, to either just raise your hand on the screen or even just chat in the box. Yeah, that one I really resonate with, or yes. But the first one is that you have always felt like an old soul, and that is pretty much what it says. You have always felt like an old soul. The second, you have had a life-changing or near-death experience. And that can mean a number of things to a number of people. So it's really what your definition of that is. You are committed, perhaps even driven to do the most, to do more with whatever time you have left. You've had incredible flashes of oneness with others. And I'm going to share just for a brief minute my first mystical experience that I had about 5.5 years ago. I'd been diagnosed with cancer for the second time, and I was having a dark night of the soul. Was so afraid I was going to die, very scared. And I was in a spin class at the gym, and I left the spin class, and as I walked out, like everybody in the gym, all these beings became balls of energy and light, and even I did, and we were able to pass through each other. It's like I could tell we were all beings, and yet we weren't, and we could pass through each other. But more than that, it was just this incredible feeling of love, this incredible feeling of being held, of being safe, like it was all going to be okay. No matter what happened, I would be okay. And I literally sat down in the gym. I mean, I had to sit on the floor and I started crying, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, I'm in the middle of this gym crying, but that's how profound the experience was. And to this day, I can bring it back, just like that, I can remember it. And we've all had those flashes. I think, those flashes of oneness. Sometimes it happens when you go outside and just look up and see a star or a bird or, something, and you get this feeling of like oneness with all. So that's a telltale sign. You may have experienced a dark night of the soul. And again, that's different for everyone. So, but you will know if you've had one. You're not sure how to share what you, and I say in quotes, see and in quotes, know with others, because you think that they might say you're crazy. People might think you're crazy, you know? And in some ways, it's difficult to even put into words some of these experiences. So that becomes even trickier. And if you're in any kind of a mainstream religion setting, that could become very tricky to express some of these mystical thoughts and experiences you're having. No religion is big enough, seems big enough to hold the mystery of what you're feeling and what you know. And also, you've been transformed, and that's the final one. And I think for me, the most important one, that when you've had mystical experiences, or you start going down this mystic path, you will know inside, like, something has changed. And for me, what changed was I lost my fear. I lost my fear of death and dying. I lost my fear of cancer. I lost, and I started to become less attached to material things. And that doesn't mean that life is perfect. Like, life is not perfect. I still have lots of ups and downs and challenges, but there is such a feeling of knowing that whatever happens, the universe is holding me. You know, the universe has my back, has my heart. I'm held, I'm loved. So those are some telltale signs, and you may or may not relate to all of them, but the most important idea that I want to get across tonight is that the mystic path is really available to each one of us. And it's about our experience of the divine and how we reflect it back to the universe. So again, that's so intimate and so personal. Nobody can tell you how to feel that or how it feels. You have to feel it. During the next hour, each one of us will experience this evening in a different way, based on how the outer world has conditioned us, you know? So for tonight, just try to let go of all that and invite yourself to connect to what remains inside when we surrender to the outside. And to get us started, I'm going to play a short video set to a poem that is called Look Within, and it is by the great mystic poet Rumi. So as you listen to the music and read the words on the screen, try not to think about them. Just feel them in your heart, feel them in your soul. And when the video ends, we'll take a few minutes to share about what the experience was like. So I'm going to share my screen. So I just want to open it up now to a little bit of sharing, just to because I want this to be experiential and for us to talk about, all of us to talk about our experience, to just ask, what are the ways that you do look within, and how do you know when you see your inner divinity? How do you recognize that? And what ways do you choose or use to look within? So if you're a shy mystic, you can use the chat box and just type in a word or a sentence. And if you'd like to speak into the room, virtually raise your hand and David will call on you in the order that you appear.
Hello, it's Leroy. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, Leroy.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
And God bless everyone that's here. um, what happens for me, I mean, it just happened recently. Um, and it really has to do with happened in at the Capitol in terms of the insurgents marching on the Capitol, actually doing more than that. But in any event, what happened is, a lot was shown, in terms of what happened, the hate and all that. But the one thing that I focused on, there was a police officer that was dragged down the steps, and he shared his story. And what he said, they started taking, his parts of his uniform, ripping it apart. And he said when he went, they were going for his gun, and he thought for a minute that if he was to take the gun and shoot them and shoot someone, it would give them a reason, bear with me, a reason to shoot him. And then he said, I'm going to appeal on their humanity. And he yelled out, I have children. And these folks surrounded him to protect him. And to me, that was a sign of God, was there. God is everywhere. But, I focused more on that ever since. The fact that these folks had a sense of humanity, which brought a sense of joy in terms of they can change, So, and I just, that brought a sense of relief and joy, certainly, that folks have a sense of humanity in that crowd, so there can be change. So I just wanted to share that, I just focused on that part as opposed to the negative part. And I saw God's presence as a way that God shows his presence. I don't refer to God as he or she or whatever. I don't. But there's a way God shows his presence, and you feel a sense of serenity. So I just wanted to share that. I don't know if I'm off target in terms of what you were trying
No,
to point out.
you're right on target. That's how you experience God, and thank you for sharing. Thank you. Who do we have next? Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson. Hi, everybody. Um, the times when I know that I'm connecting with all that is, um, the way that I first was able to know was when I was on a spiritual retreat. And that was because I left everything at home, and I could be 100% authentic. And then now it's often, and it comes through daily meditation. I meditate twice a day, and so that I can hear spirit, and spirit speaks in poetry. And so I write poetry and paint, and it comes in a different voice. It's not my voice, and has a different cadence, and I can recognize that in many other people who write spiritual poetry, because it's coming from a similar place. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Kathy. That's really beautiful. Thank you. So, and I see a couple of shares in the chat box. Yeah, connecting with divine through nature, that's definitely a big one. Intensity when we're serving in service of others, that's huge. So if anybody else, I don't see any other hands raised, so, oh, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I also I write poetry because of having had mystical experiences, and unlike Kathy, doesn't seem to be coming from somewhere else, but it seems like my mind becomes very bright and enlivened, and it's from that place that I'm writing. When I was very young, maybe 6 years old, had a series of spontaneous mystical experiences. Of course, being that young and not having like a family background that would support anything like that, I just never said anything about them. But looking back, things like the first thing that happened was I flew out of my body in the bedroom at night and was flying around. I was ecstatic. It was so much fun. And then it started with some kind of entity or voice, something came to my mind, said, pray. Well, I didn't know how to pray. I'd never been taught how to pray. But then after that, the entity kind of stayed with me over like a couple of months. And there were visual experiences of lights and going to the edge of the universe, except never getting there and realizing it like never ends. So it was quite a whole series of events during those months as a very young child. And then at various other points in my life, I would get different kinds of experiences. So yeah, and I'm very grateful that you have this program, because I don't have many people to talk to about it, really. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that with us. I know when you try to describe these experiences, people, you're like, who will believe that? But it really, it happened. So thank you. And Michael, I think you're next. And that
Thank you.
and we'll move on.
Thanks. This is great. I used to have what I thought was insomnia. Like I would just wake up in the middle of the night and I couldn't get back to sleep. And then I started to notice like what kind of thoughts I would have at that time of night. And I've started to reframe that and one of my first experiences of this was a September Sunday in 2001. I woke up and I thought to myself, our generation really hasn't had to deal with anything really traumatic. And we just don't, there's stuff going around all around the world. And we just don't have my ancestors were part of, the world wars, all this stuff we just don't have to deal with as Americans. We're so fortunate. And 2 days later, 9/11 happened. And, I've just started to notice some of the thoughts that come to me at night, and they're not always like super profound, but I have noticed that I've started to think that's when like spirit is trying to communicate with me. And so I should probably listen. So it's no longer insomnia. It's an opportunity to, in many ways, receive a message. Thanks. Opportunity to, in many ways, receive a message. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks for reminding that the mystical experiences we have are not always, rainbows and unicorns, and there can be, heavy stuff that we see or know. So so I'm going to move on and share the screen again. And we're going to move to talking about what is mysticism. So to talk about that, I want to play a video by Father Richard Rohr, who I'm sure many of you know. He's a Catholic Franciscan priest who's also a mystic, and sometimes we don't think of him that way, but he is. And I turn to him a lot, and I really love this short definition he has for what mysticism is.
Well, I'm often asked this question, what do I mean by the word mysticism, or what does the tradition mean? You know, mine is maybe too simple. I largely mean experiential knowledge of God. In other words, not just textbook knowledge or seminary phrases you've been taught, but something you really have experienced. And when people speak from true experience of transcendence or the divine or God, it's a very, very different way of speaking. And the easiest word to describe that different way of speaking is it's non-dual. Now, I know most Christians aren't used to that term, but it means you don't see everything in terms of either or. You know, like Jesus himself is not either human or divine, he's both. To understand the mystery of the incarnation, you have to be a non-dual thinker. And that's why mystics can understand things like the incarnation, the Trinity, things that otherwise defy logic. So, but let's just settle for mystical knowledge of God as experiential knowledge of God, where I know something, I might not be able to verbalize it fully. It doesn't mean you need a theology degree. You don't need it at all. Sometimes it gets in the way. It might help you in the articulation of it, but it doesn't mean because you can articulate it, you've had the experience, do you see? And I think that's the weakness that we find in a lot of organized religion, that we who are clergy are trained to say things, and that's good, but it doesn't mean we've always experienced them.
So mysticism, often if you mention mysticism, people will think of astrology and sorcery and even like spiritual voodoo. People get all sorts of notions, and it's really it can be about astrology. It can mysticism takes all sorts of forms, but it's about so much more than that. The word mystic comes from the Greek mystikos, which means the pursuit of direct personal communion with God. And to me, that can be found breathing into a star-filled sky or losing someone you love. And it can come from years of inner work, and it can take some work, or it can just happen and be a gift of pure grace when you least expect it. And that's where I say it's really accessible and available to everyone. So the path of the mystic is a path of the heart. And it is for those who have fallen so in love with the Creator or creation itself that it can sometimes feel ecstatic. I think somebody mentioned that word earlier. And even to the point where people have had mystical experiences will say it's orgasmic, and that's really a tricky one to try to explain to people. So, but mysticism values personal experience over religious dogma or being told what to believe or how to practice, and that's really what Father Richard was getting at. It's personal experiential knowledge, and to me it is rich in its own rituals and spaciousness. Teresa of Avila, a mystic, gave this advice to her sisters: Some books on prayer tell us where one must seek God. Within oneself, very clearly, is the best place to look. So mysticism is found in Judaism, in the Kabbalah, in Hinduism and Buddhism as samadhi or nirvana. It is found in Islam as Sufism, and in Quakerism as that of God in everyone. In Taoism as the way, and in Catholicism through Saint Francis and Joan of Arc. Mysticism is found in nature, art, music, science, humans, animals, rocks, air, and more. Mysticism is found in everything. So who are the mystics? You know, and who are the mystics? To begin to explain that, I'm going to show a video about it's a mystic Jewish artist whose work and life have been heavily influenced by his mystical experiences. And I think the way he explains it is very powerful. So.
Yosef Ben Arosh has been painting since childhood and has garnered attention for his colorful paintings that mix both pop art with Jewish mysticism and Moroccan flair. JN1 caught up with Yosef in Marrakesh to ask about his inspiration and artistic process. Yosef Ben Arosh is a poet and a painter who began in the arts as a young child immersed in an artistic upbringing surrounded by music and painting.
I started painting when I was very young. I loved painting. When I'm really, really enjoying the painting and I'm loving it tremendously, I'm not really painting. It's kind of like something coming through me, and it happens. But, you know, this kind of inspiration doesn't come every day.
Many of Yosef's paintings reference famous pop icons in iconography, such as the Rolling Stones, Elvis Presley, and Marilyn Monroe, that are reinscribed to incorporate Jewish and Moroccan cultural symbols. His paintings have also drawn him notice for their strong visual references to Torah and Jewish mysticism. Yosef explains to JN1 how his work evolved and took a pivotal turn in his 20s.
From about age 19, 20, I started having experiences of something which is beyond the body and beyond what I used to see and used to feel and used to think that this life was. With time, I started having questions about the deeper meaning of life and of my life, and what is birth, what is death, what is it that's going on in between these two moments. And it pushed me towards my roots and towards my origins, which are based in Torah. And then I started meeting some great teachers and reading on my own, and eventually was able to read in Hebrew and to learn through the text themselves without any form of translation. And I must say that all these teachings had a great influence on the work that I do. Still have an influence.
Marrakesh, the city itself, and its sights and sounds have also had a strong influence on Yosef's ever-evolving work and artistic style.
Yeah, I love Marrakesh. And here in Marrakesh, there's sunshine and colors, and the people dress in these beautiful colors, and everything here inspires me to other kind of expression. And I would like to translate it. I get this desire to translate it with art.
To see more of Yosef's art or to contact him in the future, you can find him online at www.iyosef.com. For JN1, this is Michelle Medina reporting from Morocco.
So we've met Father Richard Rohr as a mystic. We've met a Jewish mystic artist. And who are the mystics? You know, I believe that there are many people who are in the spiritual but not religious movement who don't realize or maybe are hesitant to admit they are mystics. They might not even have a word for it. You know, a lot of people might not even know the word mystic or what it really means. It is definitely not just saints and the enlightened who walk the mystic path. So do professors and tattoo artists and even cancer survivors. And many mystics are women. In fact, mysticism is a matriarchal wonder to me. And when I was deep in the unity movement, one of the things that really impressed me so much were how many women mystics I encountered through unity. Myrtle Fillmore, the founder of Unity, was a mystic. Florence Scovel Shinn, mystic. And I was just so, coming from Catholicism, where everything was so patriarchal and so male-oriented, to have this field called mysticism, where there was so much female energy, just felt so beautiful to me. And one of the most famous female mystics is Saint Hildegard, who lived in the 1100s, and she was a German Benedictine abbess, and she was a musician, a writer, a composer, a scientist, a philosopher, and quite ahead of her time, and really explained her work as being derived through mystical experiences, almost like what that artist is saying, being channeled, through her. So this is a little piece, a short little video, specifically about her music.
This incredibly beautiful music that had been written by this woman who had lived in the 1100s. And I was just mesmerized.
Hildegard's music was not easy. If anyone who wants to approach Hildegard's songs has to be serious about it. It's not something that you do lightly, because it's so demanding vocally. It's demanding with the breath. The phrases are very long. The range of the song, how many notes it encompasses. An octave and a half, 2 octaves. There are even a couple of songs that have 2.5 octave ranges, which is extreme for music.
And as far as we know, Hildegard's music is the earliest music that we have that we know for sure was written by a woman.
She heard her songs in her own spirit, and those songs, she said, were from her visionary work. She would hear the music, she would hear the words, and then she would put it together and sing it, probably. She probably sang it as she composed. And
Carl Jung says, as to the mystics, there belongs what is best in humanity. So it's not just about religion, but it's about humanity itself getting on its feet and being itself, its better self, its authentic self. For that too, the mystics lead the way, because they're at the edge of human consciousness. And they're wrestling with the extremes, whether it's wrestling with the extremes of evil or the extremes of ecstasy and of creativity. They have so much to say. Hildegard is a good example.
So a little bit later on, we'll hear a little bit more of Hildegard's music, but if in terms of who are the mystics, if you were drawn to attend this gathering tonight, you are likely somewhere on the path. And I really believe that in our hearts, we're all mystics. So I believe that that's who the mystics are, all of us. And when Matthew Fox said it's more than about religion, it's about humanity. I think that if the whole world realized just what a gift we have within ourselves through mysticism, how beautiful things would be. So let's talk a little bit about walking the mystic path alone together. And the reason why I chose that is walking the mystic path alone together is because it is, like I was saying, mysticism is something that is such a personal, intimate experience. And it's difficult to put it into words. It's difficult to even explain it to anyone. No one else is going to experience what you did in the way that you did and have it change you in the way that it changed you. But I know from the mystical experiences that I have had on my own, within my own, universe, that they have expanded exponentially as a result of being in community with others. Being a part of this one spirit community opened up to me the capacity for mysticism in such a way, and made those unique, personal, intimate experiences have so much more, even so much more meaning. So walking the mystic path, people who walk the mystic path generally have a natural curiosity about the physical and spiritual world. And they think a lot about things like, what happens after we die? Why am I here? How do you define soul? These are the questions that mystics sit around and contemplate. Yet they are also really uncomfortable, really comfortable with uncertainty and not knowing. So, and that certainly has been true for me. And I was somebody that really needed my whole life, like I needed to know, well, who is God? Where is he? Where is she? What is, what's going to happen? And if I didn't have that, I felt like I was missing something. And to be able to not know and be okay with it, and actually for that to be beautiful has been such a great experience. For people who walk the mystic path, their universe is infinite, mysterious, and far too complex for the human mind to comprehend. But that's okay, Those on the mystic path are not interested in converting others to their experience of spirit. It's very different that way. It is personal, and I think we realize that it's a very personal thing, and you can talk about your experience, but somebody else can't have your experience. Because mystics are guided by experience rather than leaders or society, they're often spiritual rebels. So maybe some of you can relate to that. Their heightened awareness may make them feel like they don't belong to any one group. So it can often create this sense of, I don't belong anywhere, I belong everywhere and nowhere, And although mystics may find that may not find any one religion that is big enough for them, they're certainly not dabblers. So mystics can go deep in a certain path, but feel the need to explore others. So, and that can show up in all sorts of ways, prayers from one path and rituals from another, and, just in all sorts of ways. People on the mystic path have one foot on earth. People on the mystic path can have one foot on earth and one in another dimension. They live in both light and dark as they begin to see them as one. You can live between one world and another, between life and death, between light and dark, and somehow be okay with that. Mystics, people on the mystic path, may feel uncomfortable, as I was saying earlier, sharing these thoughts and experiences with others, even their closest loved ones, because of what people might think, and I've certainly found that as close as I am with my partner, sometimes it's like I've had experiences that I'm reluctant to share, like he's going to think I'm crazy, and yet they're so real. Those on the mystic path thrive in silence, often in solitude, and as we mentioned earlier, in service. They are nurtured by things like walking alone in the woods or sitting quietly with a trusted friend. Mystics may enjoy and connect with God through poetry, meditation, wordless prayer, candles, art, books, and more. So also the people on the mystic path, it really is, the more that you open up to love, to whatever love means to you. When you open up to love, when you open up to gratitude, when you open up to forgiveness, and when you open up to community, I believe, you really can create the conditions for a mystical experience. Doesn't mean you'll have one, and it doesn't mean that just because you have one today, you may not have another mystical experience for 5 years, but you can still be a mystic, you know? And I think that's important to remember. So the highest calling of the mystic is not to become enlightened, but to become nothing, to disappear into all that is, to know on one hand that you are your own person, yet part of the whole. And that to me is, I think, where the true surrender quality comes in. And that may sound lofty and out of reach, but I promise you it is available to everyone, and will likely happen when you least expect it. And it happened to me. I know it can happen for you. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and I just want to play it's like a 1-minute video, a professor who describes what an authentic mystical experience is, and that's what the nature of our breakout rooms will be. So I will play this for you.
I've met people who've had special experiences, and most of them seem to me to be quite authentic when they talk to me about them. I mean, it's very difficult to judge, and even in the institutional church, you know, it's the judgment is the gospel judgment. By their fruits you shall know them. You know, if somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I've had this wonderful experience of God who appeared to me and told me this, that, and the other thing," maybe yes, maybe no, but the test is by their fruits you shall know them. So if they say that, and if they really have had a changed life, and if you can see that in the course of their lives, you would say, seems authentic to me. If not, doesn't seem authentic.
I'm going to stop to share for a minute, and we're going to go into breakout rooms for, I think, we're going to breakout rooms for 12 minutes. We're going to finish around 8 o'clock, so, but I think 12 minutes is a good amount of time. And in those 12 minutes, and just divide that time how you see fit, but give each person a chance to share about either their interest in mysticism or an authentic mystical experience that you've had. And then once everybody has shared, if there's still a little time left, just either, you know, you can ask each other some questions, engage in a discussion, and we will give you a 60-minute prompt when it's time to come back, and then we'll do a little sharing in the big room before we close out. Welcome back, everyone. And I just want to give a couple of people a chance to share, and then we're going to end with a beautiful, authentic medieval piece of Hildegard's music that I invite you to hang on, and listen. It's quite a treat. So is there anybody that would like to share about what they shared in the breakout room about your mystical experience or your interest in mysticism? Susan.
Hi, not so much that I want to share what I talked about in the group, just that it's been a fascinating time being cooped up because of the virus. I found out in my white fragility class that I'm a bigot, I'm a racist, and I'm finding out now that I'm a mystic. So thank you so much for introducing this idea to me. This was an amazing experience. And what I put in the chat was, I wished we had more time to talk about each of our experiences. Thank you. Thank you both, David, and thank you, Michael. Garrett, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Casey.
Hi there. I'm just going to share generally a takeaway from our group, because I just loved how everybody's experiences were so different. And that just speaks to this unique experience that we're having, and that it doesn't have to be cookie cutter and nobody else has to understand it or have the same experience. And I think that in our group, it just reiterated and emphasized that fact that you had made earlier, because all of our experiences and how we come to have these experiences are just so vastly different. And it was beautiful hearing everyone else's. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you had that opportunity to share like that. Margaret.
Hi. Yes, somebody in our group said that they don't like calling themselves anything. And I agree. As I was sitting here, I'm realizing, oh, I have mystical tendencies. Because like I never called myself a healer either, but I have healing tendencies. So I think I sort of like that better, because it's not so I'm a mystic, you know, kind of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. No, I mystic tendencies. Sure. Thank you. So unless another hand pops up quick, I am going to share my screen again and play this piece of music by Hildegard. Hold on one second. And also this mystic's prayer that I want to leave you with. Give me, O God, deep thoughts, high dreams, few words, much silence, the narrow path, the wide outlook, the end in peace. And this song by Hildegard there is authentic medieval fashion, no instruments, no harmony, just like Hildegard would have sung it. So I invite you to experience that however you want to experience it, with your eyes closed, open, lying down, your hand on your heart. But just try to imagine what Hildegard would have been feeling when she wrote this, and what her sisters would have been feeling when they heard her play this or sing this. So I hope you all enjoyed that. And if you, let me see. If you're interested in learning more about mysticism or walking the mystic path, I invite you to come over to a community I started about 4 years ago, Community in Spirit, and every Monday, the first Monday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. we have an experiential discussion group on mysticism. And if anybody would like this PowerPoint, or I know you can get YouTube, but if you'd like the PowerPoint and a list of the videos and music that was played, just email me at garrett@garrettfoster.love, and I would be happy to share it all with you. So I thank you all for being here tonight. Sorry we went a few minutes over, and I think David's going to open up the room now for us all to say goodnight to each other.
Thank you, Garrett.
So thank you all for being here.
Thank you. It was lovely, lovely, lovely. And so nice to see everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Garrett. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.